13 minutes past 9 now on Kiwi.
Live from the New Scientist Labs, it's Janine Young with Wammo on Kiwi.
New Scientist correspondent Janine Young joining us in Melbourne City today. Hello to you, Janine.
Good morning, Wammo.
Now, the question I really want to know today, Janine, is do good genes make sexual success?
Possibly. You know, I never really give you black and white answers on these things. There's been a study where they've looked at the major histocompatibility complex. It's all a bit complicated, but the more diverse your MHC is, the more likely it is you're going to have more sexual partners if you're a heterosexual girl in this age and what's the phrase I'm looking for? The time that you first have sex. It's controlled for everything. If you're in this study and you're one of those girls and you have a really diverse MHC, you're more likely to have more partners. Now, what this means is a little unclear at this point, but they do know that certainly in animals, if you have more genetic diversity in this major histocompatibility complex, which sits on the surface of your cells, and it's a way for cells to be able to recognise one another, that you are, in the animal world at least, going to have more partners, you're going to have more disease resistance. Basically, having a diverse MHC is actually quite a good thing, and I think that it may have something to do with the fact that you're able to spread your genes around and therefore increase your diversity in the population.
So, do you think that's driven by the female with the really healthy immune system, or males are able to detect a healthy immune system in a female? It's really hard to know, I'd imagine.
It is hard to know, and the thing is that there's been some studies done previously where they've found that you can actually kind of sniff out someone who has the same type of MHC as you do. They kind of smell a bit funny to you. Not necessarily literally smell, but you do have ways to be able to suss out whether a person you're considering spending your life with, for example, is going to be a good genetic fit with you. And it's probable that the same sorts of tactics, same sorts of strategies are in place here, and you can actually sniff out who's good for you and who isn't. And being able to be with someone who's more genetically diverse than you, for example, might mean that you're able to have more genetic diversity in your children. And ultimately, sex is all about getting your genes out there and having healthy children. So that's likely how this is going to work.
I thought it was all about love and stuff.
Yes, love is a very important. When two people love each other very much, MHC happens.
Are you about to give us the birds and the bees?
No, you're a very smart listener. You don't need that kind of thing from me.
No, you don't.
And I don't want to talk about it.
Let's stay with the human body and talk about bugs in the body and how smart they are, really.
It's a different type of intelligence that you might think of. It's not being called intelligence at this point, but the idea that the bugs enter our system and they're alone and they do random things is turning out not to be true. Certainly with a bug called Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Everybody needed to know that this morning. It likes moist, damp environments such as deep in our lungs. And ordinarily it would be cleared out fairly quickly. But in patients who have cystic fibrosis, they form a kind of film, a biofilm, and they work together. They talk to one another, and it's not, oh, did you hear what Marge did last week? It's all about chemical signalling. It's all about them exchanging these signalling proteins and hormones and being able to work out how to coordinate a type of counterattack when the immune system comes to hunt them down. As, of course, the immune system will, because it recognises that there's an infection inside the lung that really shouldn't be there. Now, they're finding this through the rest of the body as well, because the crosstalk between the bacteria as well as with the immune system, they can sense each other, and this is all chemical. So it's not like, again, did you hear what Marge did last week? They're sensing another process coming in a chemical fashion, and they're able to work together to be able to mount counterattack against the immune system. There's particular types of proteins that, certainly for our gut flora, and we do have particular bacteria. You hear about them in a lot of these probiotic drinks. Bacillus subtilis, for example, is one of them that is living in our gut, and it's good for us. They think that the human body, the immune system, and this particular bacterium talk to one another. And this bacterium is able to prime the immune system for whatever else that's worse might be coming into the body.
So that would mean that it could have ramifications for how we treat certain diseases and problems.
Absolutely. If we can work out how this crosstalk or how this sensing happens, then it's very likely, taking Pseudomonas aeruginosa again, if you're able to work out what the signal is to stop them mounting this counterattack or even forming this biofilm in the first place, you don't need antibiotics. There's no pressure for them to evolve, so you're not likely to get as much antibiotic resistance. We know that that's a massive problem at the moment. Considering we're covered in bacteria, they estimate that maybe 1.5 kilos of an adult human is bacteria. It would be kind of good if we could work out how to deal with the ones that we don't really want to be there that causes problems.
Mm. Hey, finally, Janine, on to bugs of a completely different kind.
Yes. Yes. Most people hate cockroaches. I'm not a fan of them. Mercifully, I have baits everywhere, so they don't give me any hassle.
Yeah.
But there's a company in the UK called Rentakill. I think everybody has them in New Zealand and Australia as well.
I always thought that Rentakill was some kind of government conspiracy, because you'd see these trucks wandering around the city with Rentakill on the side, and you never knew what they did. I only found out in the last few years. Oh, okay, Rentakill pest people, right?
No, they kill bugs. They kill bugs.
Yeah.
Like that. They've been working for the last 3 years or so on a new bug control system. And they've got a whole bunch of heaters and boilers and heat exchangers and everything to try and make rooms really, really hot. They take them to about 56 degrees and they leave them there for a few minutes. They've got heat sensors and infrared controls to try and work out that there's no cold spots where the bugs can hide. And what it does is that it destroys vital proteins, because when proteins get too hot, they break apart. It's called denaturation. They lose their structure, which means they don't work anymore. And it's also a way to be able to dry the bugs out. So it apparently kills them quite effectively. And they're thinking this might be a really effective tactic because it doesn't destroy furniture. Yeah, you remove small children and pets, but if you don't like a pet, I guess... No, I didn't say that. But they think this might be a really effective way of, again, killing bugs in a slightly different fashion because, frankly, we don't like bugs as humans. I don't think we've gotten used to the idea that we're surrounded by them, but this is a way to be able to deal with them. There is some doubt about whether or not it might be able to work in things like mattresses. If you hold the temperature high enough to kill your unwanted occupants, again, comes back to who you take out of the room before you start incinerating it.
Yeah.
But might be a very effective way to be able to get rid of things like cockroaches.
Well, and if it doesn't use as the same kind of chemicals or as bad chemicals as we have we're using these days, because you sometimes got to wonder, even if you're using fly spray, really how good that is for you at the end of the day if you're breathing that in.
There's an advert here that talks about one of these automatic spray things to kill flies and other bugs, and they say it's only as much as a 5-second spray in 24 hours. That's actually quite a lot. If you ever spray for 5 minutes, and I did once to get rid of a mosquito and I nearly killed myself with the fumes, that's actually quite a lot of spray, and you've got to wonder what it is doing to you.
Yeah.
There's a theory that low-level pesticide is actually good for humans, but that's a completely separate story.
Yeah, and I know that these things have been obviously scientifically, studied in labs, and there's been human tests and whatnot, but you got to, there's obviously should be a benefit to not having it as opposed to having it in your system.
When you think about what we've evolved to over the last however many thousand years, pesticides weren't among them.
Yeah.
Not unnatural ones anyway. So I'm not advocating that they're not safe. I'm not saying anything like that. But I tend to take a kind of avoidance approach. If you don't need it, don't need it.
Fair enough. Janine Young, New Scientist Magazine, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
And those stories you'll find in the New Scientist Magazine coming out next week.